Here we are, 2023. It's a brand new year for Dying Light 2. Now, I've talked a lot about this game in 2022, especially in December. We uploaded video after video discussing the current state of it. A lot of you showcased your thoughts and opinions to me about it as well. And since then, Techland has actually recently come out with a message of sorts about what the future holds for Dying Light 2 in 2023. They stated that they will be working on major overhauls. Nighttime will become scarier, combat will be more brutal, more gory, more physical, hopefully hinting towards ragdolls once again being more prominent in the sequel. New enemies, new weapons, and co-op improvements are coming. A more in-depth showcase will be occurring around their time of their 1-year anniversary, which is in February 4th, exactly a month from now. But today, I want to go ahead and revisit Dying Light 2. I want to ask the question, is it worth buying? Is it worth playing in 2023? I want to take this time to re-review Dying Light 2. What is the story like? What is the gameplay like? How is the parkour? The first half of this video will tell you what Dying Light 2 currently offers. The second half will very briefly touch upon what they have done, what new content they have added, and also what's in store for 2023. Now that we have that, grab your drink, shake that shit. It's about to get steamy in here.
Is your door locked? Put on headphones. It's about to get steamy.
In the base game of Dying Light 2, you get to play as Aiden Caldwell, an outcast pilgrim who is searching for answers regarding his sister, Mia. Mia, missing in action. How clever. The story will take you through Old Villador in the central loop. Old Villador is your typical old-timey town, suburban areas with streets, apartments, and houses. It's a good little area for you to practice, learn the basics, learn the parkour, and juice yourself up. The parkour in this game is a little bit more complex than it was in the original, and if you haven't played the original, that's okay. The parkour system and the movement system, honestly, it's kind of one of a kind. Some may say Mirror's Edge is a good comparison, but in my opinion, I do think Dying Light stands as its own. The system that Techland has created is incredibly detailed, and once you reach the highest level in the game, you unlock all of your skills, you're gonna really feel how in-depth the system actually goes. Because when you do start out in this game, you're very slow, weak, you get tired very easily, and you're kind of just meaningless. Every single skill that you get will make you feel more powerful, and to make you feel like you're actually doing something to your overall character progression. And this is one of the highlights of Dying Light 2, the gameplay, the parkour. You feel like a superhero because of your abilities, quickly moving through interiors, climbing up pipes, scaling these massive buildings that you once dreamed of. Especially when you unlock some of the tools such as the paraglider and the grappling hook, your enjoyment for this game is just gonna skyrocket even higher. With those tools, Dying Light 2 just becomes this open sandbox and playground area for you and your friends to enjoy. The best way to put the grappling hook, it makes you feel like Spider-Man, a happy Spider-Man where all of his friends remember him and actually love him. It's really a blast to use.
This is something else.
So remember when I did this? I decided to partner with Gamers Up, a gaming energy drink company that has some of the best products out there. And for this video, we're giving away free samples, completely free, don't have to pay for delivery or anything. Use the link down below in the description, test it out for yourself, see if you like it. Me, love the peach. Peach is great. The blue, trash. Techland gives you, the player, the tools to simply have fun with this game, use what you have available to you, and make memorable moments with your friends. One thing to really stress in Dying Light 2 is that the verticality in here is quite impressive. I don't think there's any other game out there right now that utilizes map design like this paired with this parkour movement system. It's refreshing, and that's a true standout from other open world games out there. During your time in Old Villador, you are learning, navigating yourself through this world, but you're essentially placed in the middle of a faction war. And man, this is one of the weakest aspects of the entire game. The story is so heavily focused on humans and their conflict. Dying Light 2 story is not really focused on the infected. Instead, you're roped into the story between two ongoing factions about characters that you don't really care for.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care.
Jerry.
The first faction is the Peacekeepers. It's your typical military hoorah type of guys. These guys are focused on law and order, and then you have the other side, the Survivors, who are more so focused on helping everyone and offering up a place for them to live. You will meet other characters throughout your journey, and some of these you will actually grow a bond to. You will share some memorable moments with them, particularly Hakon and Lawan. They're some of the best developed ones in Dying Light 2. And as you progress through the story, you learn more information regarding your sister's whereabouts, and it's somewhere in the Central Loop, the second main area of the game. But here's the catch: the only way to get into the Central Loop is to side with one of the two factions and help them with their plan to break through to the other side. And once this occurs, this is where the story starts to fall apart and becomes very lackluster. You see, throughout your time while playing Dying Light 2, you will make a massive amount of choices and consequences, and this system is completely underwhelming. Your choices, they don't ultimately matter. I mean, you could go and murder an entire fleet of Peacekeepers on the street and then go talk to their leader like nothing happened. With this game, Techland really decided to change things up when compared to the original. The original was very linear, barely any choices at all until the very end of their final expansion pack. At the end of that DLC, you got to make one major choice, but that was it. And because of this system, it leads to a lot of pacing issues regarding the story. The very beginning of the game, it starts out very slow, and then once you get to that epilogue section of the game, it just pushes it into hyperdrive mode, like they're trying to tie up loose ends as quickly as possible, and some they never do. I will say though, there are some really memorable moments where everything just clicks and works together. Everything is so seamless, and the moods that they're trying to portray are nailed perfectly. You have these wild, grand set pieces with explosions happening, time limits occurring, time is ticking down, you are on the clock and you need to get somewhere as soon as possible. You can feel the adrenaline, you can feel the pressure, you feel rushed. And with a game like this, you want that to occur so often. And there's also times where horror actually works. There are moments of intensity where you're on your toes, not knowing what's going to happen to you or the characters you actually grew a bond to. Certain elements to the story will have you asking thematic questions like, is all of this worth it? How far are you willing to go to get to your loved ones? How far are you willing to let go of your humanity to get what you desire? There's one mission in this game where you need to climb the biggest tower on the map, and it is by far the best mission in Dying Light 2. It knows its identity, it knows its purpose, it knows when it needs to make you feel frightened, it knows when to make you be in awe or shocked. You spend a good amount of time preparing for this exact moment, and it's finally here. How does it play out? I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. And moments like this are short-lived, but when Dying Light 2 shines, it truly does impress you. At some points during the story, it really does attempt and is successful at times at seeing how grim this world truly is. People have their motivations for what they are doing. But then there's times where those motivations are lacking. The big bad, Waltz, he's a joke. He's the main villain and his motivations are clear in the very beginning, but then it just turns into a, what the f are you doing?
Oh, Jesus! Oh, God! Oh! Oh!
You know how in early phase 1 and 2 Marvel movies, where there was the villain that wanted to destroy the world or blow it up because why not? That's Waltz. He's so forgettable. You don't care about him. He's like the villain from Thor: The Dark World. You remember him? Of course you didn't. No one remembers this piece of shit. Another major problem that this game suffers from is the lack of a horror aspect to it. I mean, you would imagine that a game like this, that has this and this, would be pretty horrifying and terrifying. But unfortunately, it's not. One of the major fear factors in the original was those nighttime sequences, and how unforgiving and depressing nighttime was. You had volatiles lurking in the shadows, waiting for you at every corner. Your first encounter with the volatile in Dying Light 1 is such a memorable moment that many players are never gonna forget that. The mission has you running to an airdrop as the sun sets. You finally get to unbox it, but then you hear something around you. Well, what is that? It sounds frightening, so you take a peek through to see a monster screaming in pain at you. Then you are forced into a night chase where your only safe haven is the tower that's miles away. So you rush back, adrenaline pumping, heart rate rising as these 8-foot+ monsters are chasing you. You're introduced at such a low level, you're powerless, you have nothing, you are nothing, you're meaningless, no one loves you. I sound like my dad talking to me right now. But then if you compare your first encounter with the volatile in Dying Light 2, Little backstory here, but this is maybe 20 minutes into the game. You're looking for an informant, you come across a volatile, he bites you, and then he f***s off. And then immediately afterwards, instead of going on this awesome chase throughout the city in the nighttime, you know what you get? You get a forced tutorial section against the renegades on how to do combat.
You see this? Disgusting.
Honestly, the best way to compare this is Dying Light 1, and this is what it feels like with Dying Light 2. The renegades are your typical disposable grunts. They're copied and pasted all around the map, and there isn't much variety to them. Their sole purpose of their existence in this world is for you to use them as a toy for your sheer enjoyment. Throw a spear at them, chop them up like Sigma Bale, do what you like with them. Enemy variety here is kind of lacking when it comes to human enemies, which is unfortunate because you think for a game that is so heavily focused on human conflicts, they would have spent more time prioritizing this area. However, I will say there are actually a good amount of new infected introduced in this game, and there's also some reoccurring ones from the original too. You have your typical infected that are the common grunts, the virals, and the biters. These infected you will run into in a normal play session every single day. But then you also have your special infected. To name a few, you have the banshees, the spitter, the goons, and the bolters. Particularly with the banshees, their appearances are very limited throughout your playthrough. With the others, you will run into them quite frequently. One of the biggest additions to the infected pool is the howlers, and their existence gives me emotional damage. They're only present in the nighttime, and their role is to emit a high-pitched scream to alert nearby infected. Sounds awesome, right? Wrong! Let me tell you why. The nighttime in Dying Light 2 is quite underwhelming. They threw out what made everything great in the original and made the nighttime more like an arcade. You see, the main purpose of the howlers is for them to trigger a chase sequence. A chase sequence is basically 4 levels that you can go through during the nighttime. The longer you stay alive, the more you progress through the levels, the more infected come out, and the more difficult it gets. Certain infected, such as the volatiles, are strictly tied behind chase level 3 and chase level 4, which is just a wild creative decision that I very much disagree with. I mean, I did speak earlier the role and the impact the volatiles had in the nighttime, and to go and lock them behind a certain level in chases, I don't like that. I will say though, Tech 1 did add a new game plus later down the road that added in roaming volatiles, but when you load up Dying Light 2 for the first time, you're going to be playing the base version, and that nighttime will feel very unsatisfying to you after some time. Don't get me wrong, in the beginning I think the chase level sequences are an awesome experience, but then you keep playing and you just want to pull your hair out. Sometimes you may find yourself searching for enemies to trigger a chase and not be able to. The whole mechanic is just weird, it's annoying, it's not rewarding at all. As you play through Dying Light 2, you're gonna see that the game sort of has an identity crisis. It doesn't know if it wants to be this gritty, realistic portrayal of what a zombie apocalypse would look like, or if it wants to be this really over-the-top, fun arcadey game. It just feels like Tech 1 doesn't know which direction they want to take their game into, and because of that, they're just not fully committed to one area, and it's really upsetting to see. But Dying Light 2, it's one of those games where you'll find most of your enjoyment out of the gameplay, the core gameplay. The parkour is brilliant. It's pretty well done there. An added bonus to everything that we discussed so far, there's also a fair amount of open world activities for you to do and keep yourself busy. Some of them will get repetitive after a little bit of time. You have GRE anomalies where you can do little mini boss battles against revenants, which are honestly some of the best new infected introduced in this game. I love these fights. They're awesome to do, to go and get rewards to make your character even stronger. You also have windmills where you can climb up and unlock certain sections of the map. They also have challenges too, and you may find that some of these activities are set up for replayability to occur, especially with the challenges. But to be honest, you're probably going to do them once, maybe twice to get that gold medal, and then never touch it again. Another thing to mention too is that you can play this game in its entirety in co-op after the prologue, and that right there was a major selling point for me. You and 3 of your friends all running around parkouring and playing Dying Light 2. You're gonna have fun, I guarantee it. I personally think every game is better than co-op, and this game had that design in mind. Co-op could tend to be a little janky at times and overall contribute to more funny moments occurring. Dying Light 2 did have a considerable amount of bugs when it first launched. I haven't personally experienced any game-breaking ones recently. The most that I have had is jank, characters glitching out, falling through the map. That's not a deal breaker for me, but for others it could be. Personally, I think it's hilarious. Still not an excuse for some of the issues going unresolved, but that's where I stand. But I think when it comes to the overall experience with Dying Light 2, I'm not going to dive into spoilers. The story does have its moments and it is enjoyable at times. Paired alongside a very good gameplay and parkour movement system, I think a majority of the players will be satisfied with what it has to offer at a price tag of $29.99 USD or less. I mean, don't expect a revolutionary story here. Don't expect The Last of Us writing. There's nothing like that here. Be prepared for some really weird pacing and not fully fleshed out subplots. I will say though, one very interesting way Techland is combating this is by updating and reworking certain sections of the game to make them feel more fleshed out. For example, certain characters will have their cutscenes reworked to feel more engaging and allow for a more in-depth storytelling to occur. And this actually occurs very often. Like we said previously, the beginning and the end sequence of the game are extremely rushed. The game ended so abruptly when it was originally released. Back when it launched and the ending started to play out, instead of seeing the consequences of your actions, you just got some black text telling you what you did. Don't worry, Techland got very much roasted for this, but they did listen to feedback. They went back to that, took that out, reworked the entire endings, and added in cutscenes. So it's a completely different experience than what you would normally play on day one. And this is just one of many examples that Techland is doing to give players a refreshing and better experience. So now, this leads me to the present.
Hey you, come here. You look good.
So what the hell is Techland doing to keep players interested? There are 4 different ways. First, they release monthly updates and patches to overhaul and add improvements right into the game. Bug fixes is a major one, but they also like to add in new things as well, such as an outfit preview, an X-ray system, which was in the original game, New Game Plus, and plenty more. Techland also loves to drop these huge updates called community updates, where they take direct feedback from the community on Reddit, Twitter, Discord, anything you can think of, and they take all of their suggestions and add it right into Dying Light 2. For example, one major request the community had for the longest time was the lighting of the game. I know, it's a weird request, but hear me out. When Dying Light 2 was showcased at E3 2018 and 2019, the way the game was presented had a very particular lighting setup. Very dark, gloomy, overall very depressing and sad, just like my love life. This was presented to us, and then the game comes out, and the colors were just over the top, very bright, lots of reds, blues, and greens, and even yellows too on these ropes. What the hell's going on there? High saturation, looking like a YouTube thumbnail, and it wasn't really an accurate representation of what was presented to us back in E3. Techland took community feedback very seriously and added in color schemes that directly reflected how it looked. Personally, one of my favorite additions added into this game. Next, they also have these free chapter updates that they do around every 3 months or so. These chapters introduce a new vendor, or what they like to call agents. Agents offer up missions, bounties, new rewards, and a little bit more content for the player to keep enjoying post-endgame completion. I will say, in the beginning of their debut, they were quite underwhelming, but as time went on, they are actively updating and reworking them to fit community expectations. One thing I really want to stress about Techland and Dying Light is that they're really actively listening to their community, and the community is kind of helping guide the path of where they want this game to go. So when Chapter 1 came out, it was quite underwhelming, so then the change from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2 was massive. Chapter 2 was ultimately better in every single way than Chapter 1. I will say, as a veteran player, their involvement into the world is quite easy to understand. However, if you're a new player and you first load up into Dying Light 2, you're going to be bombarded bombarded with messages over and over. Like, it's really going to be quite overwhelming. Isn't that right, Danny? They don't exactly explain their purpose. You're kind of just meant to go and figure it out on your own. Additionally, these chapter agents are only currently available in the central loop, so you do need to progress through a good amount of the story to even activate these activities. But to basically sum up these agents, they offer bounties and missions for you to complete in exchange for rewards. These rewards could include weapons, outfits, and sometimes even more than that. They offer up maybe 2 to 3 extra hours of gameplay before they do get a little bit boring and bland. After a couple days, you may notice that bounties start to repeat, and these agents, they don't have full quest lines. Their main source of fun and missions is just bounties. Honestly, I think if you're a player playing month to month and you're looking at this new content coming into the game, it's going to be very lacking for you. But you have the opposite side, where if you load it into this game for the first time, or maybe you stop playing at release and you're coming back 6 to 9 months later, you want to see what's on Dying Light 2, there's going to be a massive amount of for you to do. In the grand scheme of things, their updates are quite impactful, slowly pushing Dying Light 2 towards a better future, but it's going to take a good amount of time to get there. So about halfway through recording, I got a haircut. Utilizing the agents as you progress through the story for the first time is a great way to take advantage of the content available to you and get the most bang out of your buck. It'll help you unlock some really awesome weapons and some really cool outfits. Like, look at that shit right there. That's kind of hot.
This is my favorite part. Exciting.
On top of this, Techland is also doing events. Now, these events, gonna be honest, they could be awesome or they could be super mediocre. One of the events that they proposed in the beginning was Long Nights, which is exactly what it sounds like. You can spend more time in the darkness. Yay. But then on the other hand, there are times where they put out Halloween events, Christmas events, and you wonder, how did the same company come up with this and this? Some events are properly planned out and executed, while others aren't so much. Next, Techland is also doing paid DLCs. In November, their first DLC, Bloody Ties, was released, and honestly, if you get this included in your purchase of Dying Light 2, then it's absolutely worth it. I would not recommend purchasing this DLC until after you complete the main game. If you complete the main game and you're overall pretty satisfied, definitely go back and play Bloody Ties. It will be more content for you to enjoy. This DLC is aimed for a very particular audience. If you enjoyed the combat, if you enjoyed the challenges especially, you will love this DLC, as the majority of the content in here is focused on giving you new challenges to compete and enjoy. There are roughly 20 new challenges to do and then a story on top of that. They're kind of woven into one another. You can't do one without the other. And at this time, there is still one more DLC planned, but of course, their 5-year roadmap, there will be more to come. And now this actually leads me to the next section, the future.
Are you watching this alone?
So what exactly does the future hold for Dying Light 2? Is Techland on the right path? I'm kind of mixed. Now, every single month I do a review of this game. I'm very critical about it, and I talk about my thoughts and opinions on the current content that's available to us. All of this is going and trying to make sure that Dying Light 2 can become a better game. I think when you compare Dying Light 2 as a whole and how far they have come, they are on the right path. However, if you're a player playing every day, every week, you're going to be starving for content. Personally, I think the best way to play Dying Light 2 is to come into it, play everything that it has to offer, then come back like 6 months later. That way, when you return after a couple months, you get this massive amount of content for you to enjoy that you haven't played yet. DLC 2 is on the horizon. We should be getting it hopefully within the next 6 months. With the leaks that have been coming out regarding this new DLC, it seems like they're going to be exploring Sunken City, new areas, new locations, which I think this game desperately needs. There is one big elephant in this room regarding this game. How far is Techland willing to go? They already did agree to a 5-year plan like we said, but will there ever be a time where they just write this game off as a lost cause? Now obviously this game made a shit ton of money when it released, but player support is dropping dramatically over time, and I'm sure it's disheartening to constantly see people playing the original over the sequel here often. Techland is also working on another game. At what point do developers get pulled off of Dying Light 2 because it's no longer deemed a success? When do those developers get put onto their fantasy game? game? Does Techland continue to support last gen as well? That's a question that is often going unasked. I may be getting really ahead here, but when do they start shifting resources to Dying Light 3 or other entries in the series as a whole? Just some food for thought for you. If Techland is really committed on fixing Dying Light 2 and saving the future for this game, we need something revolutionary to come this way. I think moving forward, Techland really needs to put a focus on the infected when it comes to their content. Some of their chapter updates, particularly chapter 2, was a great addition for the infected pool with Dying Light 2. But these generic storylines about humans and their conflicts, I don't give a f. By embracing the infected, embracing the unique lore that you have currently set up for you, returning to your roots would benefit this game in the long run. Don't be afraid to go wild with the infected ideas. I truly do think it'll work. Make the game horrifying, make it terrifying. DLC 2 looks more like a story on humans. Please don't make me go through this emotional pain again. But the big question, is Dying Light 2 worth it? I definitely think it is if you can get this game at $29.99 or below. 100% get this game. Like I said, it's definitely a game that I would recommend revisiting every 6 months or so, or when a new DLC comes out. And if you're a player that played on launch and you haven't played for a couple months, I say after 6 months, give it a tune in, see what's happening. But I think if you're someone in the community playing every single day, every single week, and you're going to be experiencing that starve for content. If you're one of those, set the game aside, take a break from it, and revisit it after a couple months. I think then it'll be worth it for you. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Thank you all so much for watching, and that concludes this video. See you later.